The world of Lumeris was once called the jewel of the western spiral arm. Its skies were painted with twin moons, and its cities floated on shining towers of silver. But 5 years ago, those skies turned red. The empire that ruled it was betrayed from within, and the capital fell to chaos. Fires spread across the horizon. Armies that once marched proudly under the Queen's crest turned their weapons against her. It was the night Queen Serenia lost everything. In the middle of that chaos, a human ship entered the burning atmosphere. The ship was old, its hull cracked and its engines screaming. The pilot, Daniel Hayes, an engineer from Earth, had come searching for survivors from a broken trade convoy. He didn't expect to crash in the heart of a war zone. His small vessel went down near the city outskirts, flames chasing it through the clouds. He barely managed to eject before it exploded across the barren fields. When he woke up, the air smelled of smoke and ash. His wrist computer blinked red, no signal, no backup, no rescue. But then, through the dust, he heard a faint sound. A cry for help. He followed it and found her. A silver-skinned woman lying beneath the rubble, her armor cracked, her breath short. She looked fragile but powerful, like someone who was never meant to be seen in such a state. Daniel knelt beside her and checked the strange device fixed to her back. It was damaged beyond repair. Her lungs struggled against the thick Lumerian air. Without thinking, he removed parts from his own air mask and combined them into hers, sealing the broken valves. She looked at him through dim eyes and whispered something in a language he couldn't understand. Then she fainted. For 2 days, Daniel carried her through the burning countryside. Drones scanned the land above, hunting the Queen. He hid inside old tunnels and empty ruins. At night, when the sound of engines faded, he lit a small fire to keep her warm. He spoke to her even though she couldn't reply. He told her about Earth, about the endless oceans and storms, about the smell of rain on soil. He didn't know if she could hear him, but speaking kept him sane. On the 3rd night, she finally woke. Her eyes were bright blue, glowing faintly under the firelight. "Who are you?" she asked in a hoarse voice. "Daniel Hayes," he said. "Engineer, human." She stared for a long moment. "Human," she repeated, as if testing the word. "We thought your kind stayed within the Terran core. What are you doing here?" "Crashed," he said with a tired grin. "Seems to be a habit." For the first time in many years, the Queen of Lumeris laughed, a weak, quiet sound that surprised even her. But the moment passed quickly. She tried to stand, but pain shot through her side. Daniel caught her before she fell. "Easy," he said. "Your ribs are broken." She wanted to argue, to tell him she was not weak, but his calm eyes silenced her. He carried her once more, step by step, across the blackened hills. Every mile was dangerous. Every noise could mean death. But Daniel never stopped. He built small shelters using the wreckage of machines. He made her water from melted frost. He risked everything, even when she told him to leave her behind. One evening, when they reached the edge of a canyon, the sky turned crimson again. A swarm of enemy drones swept across the clouds, scanning for survivors. Daniel threw his last signal beacon far into the valley to distract them. When the drones descended, he covered her with a heat-reflective sheet and pressed her close to the rocks. The explosions shook the ground. When it was over, his arm was burned, but the Queen was safe. "Why would you do that?" she whispered, staring at his injury. He only smiled. "Because that's what humans do." Those simple words stayed in her mind. For a woman who ruled thousands of worlds, no one had ever spoken to her like that. No titles, no fear, no demands, only honesty. Days turned into weeks. They finally reached the mountain base where her loyal soldiers hid. When they saw her alive, they knelt in tears. The Queen ordered them to help Daniel, but by the time they turned, he was gone. No footprints, no ship, nothing. Only a small device left behind. His wrist computer, its screen cracked, showing a faint message. "You'll be fine now." "Keep going." Serenia waited for him to return. Days passed, then months. No signal, no trace. Her world slowly rebuilt itself, but she felt empty inside. Her advisors said he must have died in the firestorms, that no human could survive the deserts beyond the mountains. But she refused to believe that. Each night she went to the royal balcony and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, she thought, a human still walked under the same sky. She even had a small garden built beside the palace lake. In the center stood a stone carved with his name, Daniel Hayes of Earth. No royal title, no military rank, just the name of the man who had carried her when her own world had fallen. Years passed. The Empire regained strength. The Lumerians expanded again into the stars. The Queen became a symbol of unity, but deep inside she still remembered the warmth of a human voice in the cold darkness of war. Then, one quiet morning, her guards rushed into the throne room. "Your Majesty," one said, his voice shaking. "An unregistered ship has entered orbit." Serenia frowned. "A smuggler?" "No, my queen," the guard replied. "It carries a Terran code. The identification reads, Daniel Hayes." The queen froze. For a heartbeat, she forgot her crown, her empire, her throne. She stood up slowly, her eyes wide. "Repeat that," she said softly. "Daniel Hayes, human engineer." "The ship requests permission to land." Her breath caught. The room seemed to fade around her. For 5 years she had waited for a voice that might never return, and now the universe whispered that it had come back. When she walked to the viewing balcony, her generals followed. Above the city, a small battered ship descended through the clouds. Its hull was scratched, its engines weak, but it flew steady. The sunlight glinted off the side, revealing a faded human insignia. Serenia's hands trembled slightly. Memories rushed back. The night of fire, the mountain winds, the way he had smiled through pain. She whispered his name once, as if afraid that saying it aloud would break the moment. As the ship landed on the royal platform, thousands of citizens gathered to see it. Rumors spread like lightning. "The human has returned. The Queen's savior lives." But she barely heard them. Her heart pounded harder than it had in years. The ship's ramp lowered. The air hissed softly. A man stepped out, dressed in worn armor patched with alien emblems. His hair was longer, streaked with gray. His eyes were calm but carried the shadows of many battles. It was him. Daniel Hayes, the human who vanished. Serenia couldn't move. For the first time since the war, the Queen felt unsure of herself. She wanted to run forward, to speak, to thank him, to ask why he disappeared. But her body stayed still. Around her, her advisors whispered nervously. "Shall we detain him first, Majesty? He could be an imposter." She raised her hand. "No one touches him," she said firmly. The man looked up at the grand balcony. When he saw her, a faint smile appeared on his face, the same tired, kind smile she remembered. He gave a small nod, almost like a soldier greeting a friend after a long journey. In that moment, the Queen of Lumeris felt something no crown could give. The galaxy might have forgotten the human who once saved her, but she hadn't. And now, after 5 long years, he had returned from the void itself. The crowd roared below, but the world seemed silent between them. The human who vanished after saving her was alive, and the Queen still remembered. Daniel Hayes stepped off the ramp of his battered ship and onto the polished platform of the royal palace. The sun reflected off his worn armor, showing scratches and dents from years of battles he had never told anyone about. His eyes scanned the crowd briefly, but it was her he was searching for. The silver-skinned queen who had once been weak, frightened, and now stood with the weight of an entire empire on her shoulders. Her blue eyes widened the moment she saw him, and Daniel felt an old familiar tug in his chest. 5 years had changed them both, but the connection they had formed in the fire of survival remained as strong as ever. Serenia descended the steps to meet him. The guards parted quickly, sensing her intent and authority. The air between them felt electric. He could see the tension in her body, the way she straightened herself despite her uncertainty, the subtle rise and fall of her chest as she tried to contain her emotions. He remembered how fragile she had been when he first found her, how she had leaned on him, fully trusting a stranger from another world. That trust had changed both of them forever. Daniel approached slowly, mindful of her presence. The citizens whispered, astonished at the reunion of the human who had vanished and the queen he had saved. Rumors of the wanderer from Earth had spread across star systems, but no one had expected him to appear in the heart of Lumeris. He had become a legend among scattered colonies and refugees, known for saving entire settlements from starvation, piracy, and hostile forces. Yet here, he was just a man returning to a life that had been paused 5 years ago. Serenia's voice was quiet but steady. "You disappeared. No one knew where you went. We thought you were lost." Daniel looked at her and gave a small, tired smile. "I had my reasons. It wasn't time to return. I had to make sure others survived first. The galaxy has many corners and many people needed help. But I always remembered you. Always." She took a slow breath, steadying herself. 5 years, she said, almost to herself. 5 years waiting, hoping, wondering, and now you're here. Her voice carried the weight of all the nights she had spent staring at the stars, wondering if he had truly survived. Daniel nodded. I've seen many things, fought in battles you could not imagine, lost friends along the way, but I never forgot the promise I made, to help you when you needed it. The Queen studied him, noticing the subtle scars that marked his body and the faint lines on his face that spoke of exhaustion and endurance. He had carried the burden of entire worlds, yet he remained humble. That humility, that human trait she had come to admire, made her heart swell with gratitude and something else she could not yet name. They moved to a quieter area of the palace garden. The garden was serene, a place she had visited often when she wanted to think. At its center was the monument she had built in his honor, a simple stone carved with his name. Daniel touched it gently, and the memory of their first encounter together flashed in his mind. The burning landscape, the weight of her body in his arms, the fear and trust mixed in her eyes. You built this for me, he asked softly, his voice almost breaking with emotion. Serenia nodded. I could not forget. Even if the galaxy forgot, I never did. You saved me, human. You changed the course of my life and perhaps the fate of my people. Daniel looked out over the garden, the wind brushing past him, carrying the scent of alien flowers. I never thought I would return. I thought I might be lost forever. But it seems the universe gave me a second chance. They stood in silence for a few moments, letting the weight of the past 5 years settle around them. Daniel's mind drifted to the colonies he had saved, the lives he had touched, and the quiet victories that had gone unnoticed. Yet nothing compared to this moment, standing before the woman whose life he had once saved. Finally, Serenia spoke. You have done more than I could ever imagine. You risked your life, disappeared without a word, and still you returned. How do I even begin to thank you? Daniel shook his head. No thanks are needed. I did what anyone would do. Humans help where they can, but it feels good to see you safe, to see you whole again. His gaze met hers, and she saw the truth in his eyes. The human who had risked everything for her still carried her memory with him, as she had carried his in the lonely nights of her exile. Serenia smiled, a gentle warmth spreading across her face. And now? Will you stay this time or vanish again? He considered her question carefully. I won't leave this time. Not if someone is waiting for me. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of years of longing, danger, and courage. He had spent years wandering the galaxy, saving others, yet the thought of returning to her felt like home for the first time in his life. The Queen felt an unfamiliar relief. She had spent years as a ruler, commanding armies and navigating political betrayals, but this was different. This was human courage and loyalty, not for duty or title, but because it was right. And it had returned to her, embodied in one man who had crossed galaxies and time to stand here again. Daniel and Serenia walked slowly through the palace gardens, speaking quietly of the years they had been apart. He told her of the remote colonies he had saved, of the wrecked ships he had repaired, of refugees he had led to safety. Every story carried the echo of danger and hope, of lives changed through human ingenuity and determination. Serenia listened, amazed by his endurance and humility. She realized that humans were more than warriors or engineers. They carried something intangible, a spark of compassion that could survive any galaxy-wide disaster. Later, they came to the quiet pond in the garden, its water reflecting the twin moons of Lumeris. The night was calm, a stark contrast to the chaos that had brought them together years ago. Daniel knelt beside the water, skipping small stones across the surface. Each ripple seemed to carry a memory, of firestorms, of whispered conversations, of moments when hope seemed lost but wasn't. Serenia stood beside him, watching the ripples fade. You have seen so much, done so much, she said softly. And yet here you are, not as a hero seeking fame, but as a human who values life above all else. Daniel smiled faintly. I don't need titles. I've seen what loss does to people, and I've learned that saving even one life can change everything. You showed me that once, and now, I hope I can continue to do so, here with you. The Queen felt a deep connection growing stronger than any political alliance or military victory. It was trust and understanding, born from shared hardship and courage. She realized that the galaxy had given her more than survival. It had given her a human who could match her spirit, who could challenge her and support her in ways no other being could. Daniel stood and extended his hand to her. "Shall we face the future together?" Serenia hesitated briefly, then took his hand. The contact was simple, but it carried the weight of their shared past and the promise of what was to come. Together they looked at the stars, seeing possibilities instead of dangers, hope instead of fear. The citizens below whispered among themselves, marveling at the reunion. They had expected a hero of legend, and now they witnessed a human and a queen standing together, not as ruler and subject, but as equals bound by courage, trust, and respect. In the quiet of the night, Daniel and Serenia walked back toward the palace. The galaxy outside their walls was still full of unknowns, still dangerous, but they no longer faced it alone. The human who had once vanished had returned. And for the Queen, it was not only a rescue, it was a reminder of the strength that humanity could offer, a spark that could ignite hope across the stars. As the twin moons reflected in the palace windows, Daniel looked at Serenia, and she looked at him. Words were not necessary. They had survived wars, traversed dangerous lands, and faced impossible odds. Now they had found each other again, and the galaxy, vast and endless, would witness the union of courage, loyalty, and hope, born from the actions of a human who never gave up, and an alien queen who never forgot. And in that moment, under the serene light of distant moons, both human and alien understood that true heroes were not born from power or armies, but from compassion, endurance, and the choice to act when it mattered most. The story of Daniel Hayes, the human who vanished and returned, and Queen Serenia, who still remembered, would be told across worlds for generations, not as a tale of war, but as a tale of hope, resilience, and the enduring strength of humanity in the vast, endless universe.